Wedding Bells Ahead by Arleta Richardson. Chapter 13. Ma Sends Her Love. Sarah Jane, when time is divided so neatly into months and weeks, wouldn't you think life's trials and tribulations could be distributed more evenly? We were on our way home for the weekend, happy for some time to catch up with each other.
How do you want them spaced? She asked. 3 trials a week and 4 tribulations monthly? What happened to casting all your cares on him, for he careth for you?
Do you realize you've been quoting scripture to me since we learned our first verses in Sunday school 15 years ago?
That's because I like short, well-phrased words of wisdom. They also happen to be true. You're evading the question.
I know, I sighed. There's not one thing I can do about either of the 2 matters that concern me most. The Lord is going to take care of Ma without any help from me. Your mother has promised to be there as soon as she is called, and Pa can get the doctor in less than a half an hour. I know they don't need me.
You're right about that,
Sarah Jane agreed.
You'd be worse than useless pacing around the kitchen wringing your hands. But I'm not so sure about the other concern.
Jerome didn't offer me the job, I protested. It has to be Len's decision.
But it's your life too, Mabel. It's just that you and I have a different approach to problem solving. You fuss to yourself and never face anyone with what you really think.
I nodded. I know. You would have reminded Len of his responsibility to the Lord before he'd had a chance to think about how rich he could be. I guess I figured that was the Lord's job.
You're right, too,
Sarah Jane said.
You can't make up Len's mind for him, and he shouldn't feel obligated to do what you think is best. She shrugged. I'm just a run-the-world person.
That's the way I like you, I assured her. And so does Thomas. By the way, what do you hear from him? When will he be home?
For Thanksgiving, she replied. He works Saturdays as a lab assistant in the science department. It's a good job, and he can keep it full-time this summer if he wants.
Sarah Jane glanced at me.
He wants us to get married before school starts next fall.
Married? But he has another year of school. And what about your job at Edenville?
I'm not as dedicated to teaching as you are, Mabel, she said with a grin. I'd rather be Mrs. Thomas Charles. Besides, Thomas says I won't have a problem getting a position in Ann Arbor if I want to teach.
You've decided then?
Well, of course I'm asking your permission first,
Sarah Jane teased. Our lives will really be going separate ways, won't they? I said. I don't know how to handle that, Sarah Jane. We've never been more than a few miles apart as long as we've lived.
Sarah Jane nodded. I've thought about that a lot. But nothing can take away the years of our lives that we've shared. We'll remember them when we're old ladies.
You're right as usual, I said.
Besides, Sarah Jane reminded me, you've as much as told me I couldn't live with you after you were married anyway. You'll have to manufacture your own problems from now on.
That shouldn't be hard, I laughed. But I'm glad the Lord arranged for me to meet Len.
Are you sure it was the Lord? Sarah Jane snickered. It looked an awful lot like a goat to me.
You are never going to forget that, are you? I said with a sigh.
Not the longest day I live. The sight of that animal chasing you into Len's arms when you didn't even know who Len was is among my choicest memories. Then she grew more sober. But I agree. The Lord directs the decisions of our lives if we allow him to. Haven't you ever wondered whom you might have met if you had taken a different school?
I shook my head. Len is the one I want. He's sensible and patient and level-headed enough for both of us. And he'll need to be, I added hastily before Sarah Jane could say it. In addition to all that, he thinks you're the best thing that's happened to North Branch since the railroad went through, she said. You couldn't ask for much more. I left Sarah Jane at her porch with a promise to see her later and turned toward home. Pa met me and took my things from the buggy.
Ma's lying down,
he told me as he prepared to lead Regal to the barn. Is anything wrong?
I asked in alarm. No, no, Pa assured me. She's fine. A mite uncomfortable is all. He chuckled. She's sure it didn't take this long the last time. I hurried into the house to find Ma coming down the hallway toward the kitchen.
I thought I heard voices, she said cheerfully. I'm glad you're home. Go back and lie down, Ma. I'll come there and talk to you. I don't want to lie down, she said. But come back here and let me show you what the ladies at the church brought this week.
We went to her room and Ma took out a box of handmade baby things.
Aren't they beautiful? This will be the best-dressed baby I ever had. Pa brought the old cradle down from the attic and refinished it. This is all beginning to seem more real to me now. What will you call the baby, Ma? That depends. First of all, it's a girl, I stated. Ma laughed. If it's a girl, you may name her. Can't believe I was ever small enough to fit in there, I said, looking at the cradle. You're not much bigger than that now, Ma replied, eyeing me critically. Have you been losing some weight? I don't see how I could be with Augusta fixing the meals, I said. She's always after me to eat more.
I didn't tell Ma about my concern over Len's decision, figuring she didn't need anything to upset her right now.
That's just a part of growing up,
I thought.
You have to fight your own battles.
I shared my thoughts with Sarah Jane as we traveled back on Sunday.
Parents do all they can to smooth the road for you, but in the end you have to make your own way, don't you? I didn't say a word to Pa and Ma about Jerome's offer.
If you keep that up, you'll find out you really can run your own life, Sarah Jane replied. And don't forget, your folks had some expert help in bringing you up.
You?
That too, of course, she grinned. But I was thinking how fortunate we've been to have parents who trusted the Lord for guidance. I hope I do as well with my children. Len was still excited about the prospect of a partnership with Jerome. After church that evening, he talked about our home. Would you rather be near the river or closer into town? Let's ride around this week and choose a likely spot. Do you want a one-story house that's spread out or 2 stories? Maybe we should look at some places in town to get some ideas. He sighed happily. Isn't God good to give us all this? Len didn't seem to notice that I wasn't as joyful about the whole affair as he was. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps the Lord did send this good fortune our way. It was certainly no sin to take advantage of the best life had to offer, was it? Then why did I feel so miserable about the whole thing?
What did your folks say about it?
I asked. Len didn't answer for a moment. I haven't told them, he said. I thought I'd wait until we have the arrangements all worked out. They'll probably be disappointed, but I'm sure they'll see what a wonderful opportunity this is. After all, there's no reason I can't continue to work for the Lord. In fact, I'll probably have more contacts at the mill than I ever would in a tiny little church. The last of November was here, and we had just 2 weeks left to get ready for our program. Jamie was concerned about the decorating.
We've never had a Christmas without our own tree, he announced. Just because this isn't exactly a Christmas pageant doesn't mean we should skip all that. We always have time for the Christmas story, no matter what else we do, I agreed. We must have a tree and a manger. The other decorations will have to do with the school's history.
When I arrived home on Wednesday afternoon, Augusta met me at the door. You took long enough to get here.
I came as soon as the children left, I told her. Did you need something?
No, I don't need a thing. Just wanted to tell you that your pa has a real odd sense of humor.
Pa? Is he here?
Nope, he sent you that card over there. I dropped my books on the chair and ran to get the postcard. The baby came this morning. Everyone is fine. Ma sends her love. Yours, Pa. I read it through twice.
But what is it? I wailed. Why didn't he say whether it was a boy or a girl? I won't know until Friday.
I looked helplessly at Augusta, and she burst out laughing. Be thankful you know it's here and that your ma is all right, she said. Some men wouldn't have gotten that much on a card."
Pa did that on purpose, I said with disgust. I was so sure I knew what the baby would be that he wants me to stew for a few days.
I looked at the clueless card again and smiled. There was time later on to be annoyed with Pa. Right now, I was thankful that all was well at home. "You'll want to go over and tell Len and his folks," Augusta's voice broke in. "Here's a fresh pie for their supper. We have one to celebrate with, too, so hurry back." I thanked Augusta, put my hat and mittens back on, and stepped outside into a soft snow, one that promised to make the world look as new as the baby at our house. End of chapter 13.